All right, everyone. Welcome to the season one, episode one of the Greater Philadelphia Track Club Member Spotlight. We are lucky to have Brock Butler with us today, who graciously agreed to be part of this experiment early on. And so Brock Butler he's been with the club for a few years and he's made a big splash. He's very involved in the community, not just posting amazing times as an athlete, but also really contributing to the greater good of the club. His Facebook profile says family guy, runner, tech product leader, performance and movement coach, and we'll actually get into some of those things today. But real quickly, to give you a little bit of the performance background of Brock, he's already accumulated 5 of our club records. So starting with the 8K at a 25:03, and then the 10K, he's run a 32:21. The 10-mile record he's got is 52:13. That's one in particular. I run Broad Street every year, and I can't fathom that. And he's also got the Masters Marathon record at 2:25:49. And then in addition, when we look at the individual course records, that he's got the Brandywine Delaware Cross Country 5K record at 17:12. So that obviously is an impressive array. I know you even dipped down lower into the 400, and I don't know, you might even run a pretty mean 100, like most of these good distance guys. But anyway, so well, let's just get into it. So, Brock, tell me a little bit about your running and racing background and what led up to actually joining Greater Philly.
All right. I'll try to keep to the point, but I'm going to take us back to like kind of the beginning just because I think it helps understand where I came from on all this. So I actually started running probably when I was around 8 or 9. My dad was the head track coach at Westchester University, and probably like any running dad, he saw his son had some talent and he pushed him into it. And so I ran a lot from like 9 to 12, including like CYO, cross country, running at the national championships, all that kind of stuff. And then largely stopped until I played soccer and lacrosse. And my senior year in high school, I was felt really fit coming out of soccer, and I decided to run indoor track just to stay in shape for lacrosse. And I did well. I got 3rd in the state in the 800, and then ran outdoor track and got 2nd in the 1600, and got a scholarship to Villanova. So it was kind of it wasn't like I came out of nowhere. I had running experience, but I had stopped for a while. So I was exposed to track at an early age. I ran 4 years at Villanova, including 1 year with Marcus O'Sullivan when I was a senior, which was awesome. Pretty tough spot to run. Like, I was not a star. I was mostly the one that could help maybe train some of the women or jump in Big East and maybe score like a point or two in the steeplechase. That was kind of my thing. But I focused on middle distance. It did okay, not as well as I would have liked to, but that was a big experience for me, I think, from a running perspective. Fast forwarding, so 20s, I was doing multi-sport, mountain biking, triathlon, basically off in my 30s. That was kind of the family and career decade, I would say, where I was building the family and getting into the career. And then as I approached 40, I was like kind of just missing it. So I started doing like ultra running, just because it was new and different and fun, and got off road. It was, yeah. And then everything changed at 40. I ran the Philadelphia Marathon kind of just to do another I'd only ever done one marathon. Did a marathon, and I ended up winning the Masters race. I was actually in the hotel and people were texting me like, "You're supposed to be up on stage collecting your check." And I was like, "What? Wait, what are you talking about? Money?" I didn't even know there was money for Masters. So that all changed everything. And at that point I got competitive, I guess. And that brought me to the team because I started training. One of my buddies, John Becker, who's on the team, was like, "Hey, we should run the 4x400 at Penn Relays." I'm like, "That's cool. Let's put a team together." And I'm like, "How are we going to get 4 healthy 40-year-olds who can run that fast?" I'm like, "No way." So we found Chuck. And I love that Greater Philly had both cross country team, they ran at Milrose and Penn, had people competing at everything. So it was just a natural fit to join the club. And, it was great. We had 1 full year last year with the club, going to like national championships. Indoor was great. Like it's been really fun. So that's kind of how I got to the club.
That's great. Similar in a lot of ways. I think you hear, similar stories to a lot of our club members. Obviously, there's a lot of different paths that bring us to the club, but having some of that, pretty intense competition experience in the college, and then getting into other activities for a while. That's, by the way, exactly how I looked into Greater Philly as well. I started
Yeah.
looking at trying to put together an ad hoc team for the 4x400,
Yeah.
and actually got as far as talking to someone at Penn, and they said, you need to be with a club. We're not letting you put together. We don't care what you've done. So yeah, I think that's a draw for a lot of us. So you mentioned your family, and we will get into more of the competition stuff, but about you've got two kids with your wife, Kara. I think a lot of people in the club would like to hear what a typical day in the Butler house looks like, especially right now.
Especially now, yeah, it used to be. So I've got a third grader and a sixth grader. They just started yesterday. And yeah, it used to be I go to the office, they go to school, my wife worked at home. Now we're all at home. So yeah, typical days. Right now it's been like transitioning to school, and they've got their spots downstairs. My wife's got her spot. I kind of gravitate. I like to work a little bit with them just to keep them on track, but then I'm kind of up in our guest bedroom office area. That's where I do a lot of work, because I'm on conference calls a lot. So it's interesting. We yeah, during the day we're just trying to make it work, and then the rest of the time we're trying to do stuff together. So we like to ride bikes. We've got Marsh Creek nearby. We love to go over there and get in the water sometimes. We bake stuff, we make stuff, we watch shows. That's kind of like our decompression time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting lately, and so it's kind of hard to say what our daily life is now, because it's been disrupted. But we're making it work.
But it doesn't surprise me that you get out there and get the exercise in as a family.
Yeah, we try to get out there. They know, like, they got to do something each day. I think that's important. We also have a schedule, and I kind of rotate in the morning. I'm often out pretty early on my runs. Sometimes I get a second run in the evening after Kara's got her job done. So we kind of make it work in terms of getting my training in there. I do train a lot, so I'm lucky that I have support from the family to make that happen.
That's awesome. It's important. You mentioned work briefly. You have a pretty cool resume, professional resume. And I know that you've kind of, your career bleeds into your running and your training a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Sure. Yeah. So my background, like my college degree, is in computer engineering. So I started off in a technical track. All the companies I've ever worked for have been technology companies. But I've gravitated more to like product leadership, product management, product marketing type roles. So I've been in these technology companies, but I'm typically not the one writing the software, doing the actual building. I'm sort of leading from a strategic perspective, and that's been fun. I think I'm generally creative, and I like to make stuff, and I like to make things that people find valuable and find ways to let them know about it. So that's kind of how I got into the product marketing side of things. But it's fun. Like I like what I do. I just like making new products and finding ways to meet needs that are out there in the world.
Yeah.
And I've done it in telecom, I've done it in marketing, I've done it in HR, like different sectors, but all of them have been technology based companies.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And everyone at my work knows I run. So they're not surprised when they see me like running to work or jumping out at 2 p.m. to just get a jog in. It's like, oh, it's just Brock. Right?
Yeah.
So
well, that's something I've missed in our previous conversation. So you make a practice of running to work?
I when I used to work in an office, yes. It can, I live I have a good like 3.5 mile route to work. So that's a nice morning commute. I can get there in like 25-30 minutes, which is still shorter than most people's commute. So yeah, when I drive, it's almost too short, especially coming home. I don't have time to decompress. So I would sometimes run to work and back like twice a week for a while.
Yeah. I haven't been to my job in about 9 months because I was on a sabbatical in the spring. So I haven't been to my office in a while, but I do run regularly when I am. And for a while, I used to like make a point of going to the locker room and showering. And then I realized I was in it on my classes so quickly, it didn't really make much of a difference. At least for a good chunk of the year, I run slow enough. It's not a big deal. But, it's something I've tried to encourage more and more people to consider doing. So you have hobbies, some fun ones. My family is really into camping and road tripping, so that's definitely something I think I connect with you on.
Yeah.
But you tell me that you're fixing up a Jeep Gladiator. What's the first big adventure the family's planning on taking once you've got that? I have a feeling it's gonna be pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, so I got this Gladiator last year, and I've never done a lot of work on a car myself. I've just driven the car, but this, I don't know, for some reason it's a Jeep, and it's just once you start tinkering with it, you get the bug. And so with all our vacations kind of getting ruined thanks to the COVID stuff, it was like, okay, this would be a pretty good platform to just get out there and explore, because we can get out there pretty safely, camp and see things without being in contact with a lot of people. So yeah, I've been fixing it up gradually, both for off-road driving. We like to take it off-road, and also just overlanding. So it's got a tent on top, an awning, a fridge, different things that make it just comfortable for traveling and exploring. And we took 2 trips to New York this August, kind of 2 separate trips, which I would call like warm-up trips. They were 4 or 5 days, all camping. They were fun. Like, we had a good time. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to prepare for something bigger than that. Like, I think next year I'd love to go out west, visit national parks,
Yeah.
Moab. Like, I just want to, I got to figure out how I can take like 3 weeks and
Yeah.
make a big trip out of it. So yeah, still working towards that. Not sure exactly what it'll be, but that's kind of the goal, is to be able to take some really long trips, maybe even eventually like longer, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like the kind of vehicle you'd want to do the Alcan Highway up
Hmm.
to Alaska at some point.
I was gonna say Alaska is sort of on my mind as like that would be a good one.
Yeah, yeah. That's like long range plan for us. But yeah, it takes especially from here, you need a few weeks just to
Oh
get
yeah,
to the launching pad. All right, so let's talk a little bit about running, should we?
let's
Um,
do it.
you've been involved in some big things this summer, especially for the club. So tell us what you've been up to. I won't even try to introduce it.
Well, yeah, it was an interesting year. I had to take off from like end of December until almost April because I was healing up some injuries. And so for me, like, I had to get back into things slowly anyway. So I started in April, and we have I've formed kind of a pretty good training group. I'd say a good amount of them are part of the club. Some are part of other clubs. We just train together. And yeah, we decided, like, let's there's no races going on. Let's schedule some time trials, and let's put together a training plan where we can kind of collectively work towards some fast times. We wanted to target like a fast mile in August. So we put together a training plan to focus more on like middle distance, which was kind of fun. We all had our goals of like times we wanted to hit, and people were at different areas, but like we put in some serious training, and I think I counted like 9 or 10 time trials that we actually put on as a group from maybe like May through August. We just did our last one this past Sunday, which was a mile at Germantown Academy, and we had 24 athletes compete. It was great.
That's
And we, each time we have a time trial, I'm always surprised. Like, people come out of, the hardest part was keeping it low, because I didn't want to get these to be
right.
big events right now, right? I didn't want to attract attention. And so the hardest part was like keeping it small. We put on one 5K in May, and I thought there was gonna be like 14 people, and like 30 people showed up. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Right, right.
There's just such a demand for it.
Has it been people mainly from the club, or just random people
Both.
all over?
So it's some people from the club, like definitely like this past weekend we've been drawing in more people from the club, but other people, like, I have, there's these masters guys in different areas that we all know each other. So like Dave Welsh is coming out from New Jersey, and Mike DeGeneres is coming out from Delaware, and it gives us a chance to race, because that's who we would be competing against, if we were out there. So it's fun to get together and still have a shot at each other every once in a while. But yeah, so that's been really fun. It's been, that whole thing has just brought a lot of us together. Like, I want to emphasize like how important to me the community and like the camaraderie is over, the performances this summer were good, but I got a lot more enjoyment out of just bringing people together and seeing some people do some amazing things. Like Tim Hart on the team, he's 52. He just ran a 4:47 mile, and he's just been like crushing it. I mean, he's been so fast, and it's been really cool to see him develop. And overlaid on top of this was this virtual competition. I don't know if you heard about it, but it sort of landed on me. It was called a group out of New York called Trials of Miles organized a virtual track race, track competition, which actually was 4 different races, and you get eliminated. So approximately half the athletes get eliminated each one.
Okay, yeah.
They're all on the track, and there was a masters and open division, men and women. So I competed in the masters along. John Becker was with me, and it was actually really fun because they had a really good like social media thing going, and they had interviews and pictures, and I got to meet some other really good masters that I was competing against from like Florida and Oregon and Illinois, I think. And it came down to the last event, which was a 2K a few weeks ago, and turned out that like 3 of us all finished within like a second of each other in the 2K, and I won narrowly.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it was a
Congratulations.
really, really close one. And if it hadn't been for like this group that I was running with, and honestly, in the time trial, I had a bunch of people helping me.
Yeah.
Without that, I would have never done it.
So that, yeah, actually I have a bunch of questions. So you can run with other people and actually obviously have pacers, or, I don't know if that's really the idea, but.
Yeah, you have to run, you're supposed to run on track.
Mhm.
But you could have other people. We cleared that. We're like, oh, because if we can have other people running with us, like that's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody who was in the competition had pacers and had help. Some
Then
people
what
had
was
different
the,
levels.
like you said, you got to know some of these other competitors. Was there a forum? Like, how were you interacting aside from posting your own runs and tracking each other?
Yeah, I mean, Strava was one way, right? So we all of a sudden all follow each other and we're commenting on each other's runs. But the Trial of Miles has a really good Instagram account, so they post everything there, and they would do like live interviews, and everyone would come in and be commenting there. So it was actually a pretty good forum for like just sharing stuff and learning about each other. It was kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that the camaraderie was a big part of what you were doing this summer.
Yeah.
If you could elaborate on that a little bit more. I mean, it was so different than the way we normally. I mean, obviously, a lot of us, love being a part of the club for the camaraderie, but I think
Yeah.
you were tapping into a different aspect of that this summer.
Maybe. I mean, honestly, the camaraderie in the community, that stuff was probably more important to me than any performances, like I said. So how did I tap into that? So in addition to the group that we kind of formed, I've been trying to send out like weekly emails that summarize what we're doing, what we've done, what's going on. And those have been reaching more and more people. I found a lot of people are just interested in hearing about that. Some join the training every week. Some just pop in every once a month. So it's been all over the place. But yeah, getting the word out that way has been fun. And like this Trial of Miles pulled in some people that I didn't know, and they started racing with us. And then I guess it just keeps growing. Like people keep telling other people about it, and then they get in touch with me and they want to do something, and we just make it work. So that meant that instead of having all of our workouts like near me, we started working out at like Lower Merion or Germantown Academy or some other places where we could get closer to other athletes. And so we started moving around to try and make it more accommodating for more people. And yeah, that was great. Like, I know I helped some athletes like with pacing and helped them get to some PRs, which was cool.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me, like other people in the group would, one week you're getting help from somebody, and then the next week you're pitching in and helping someone else, which was awesome. Right. So to me, that's where like the camaraderie comes in. And then, I realized that some people were like looking at our workouts, because I posted a whole training plan, and every week we'd schedule workouts. And some people were like never working out with us, but still following the training plan. So that was kind of cool.
So, yeah, depending on what they were, where they are or whether or not they're willing. Some people might have been playing it safer than others as far as showing up in person.
They were. And some of these people were on other clubs, I gotta say, but hey, they're getting value out of it, so it's all good.
Yeah, I think that's great. So yeah, there was another question that I had as far as so, I mean, in a way, you were sort of blending the face-to-face interaction, sort of still getting people out, but in some ways, your focus was these virtual competitions.
Yeah.
What did you find as far as, I know there's like at least one distinguished member of our club who in the beginning just balked at the idea of virtual competition, and then came around, So what did you see happening as far as that goes? And is it, how do you feel about it today, even as far as the virtual competition?
Virtual competitions, yeah. I mean, the virtual competitions are, they're different. This trial mile one was very different, only because of the way they set it up on social media and the way they would actually like pitch people against each other. So it was kind of neat. Like I participated in the world, whatever that world athletic one was for masters,
Oh
and
yeah.
posted some times there, but like they just didn't make much of it, and it was really hard to. So just it didn't feel as interesting to me.
Mhm.
But with our what we hosted, you know, I think it did blend both. Like I don't think I would have liked something that was purely virtual, or I was just doing a time trial on my own, because I did a couple time trials on my own and those were not fun.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoy doing the time trials with a small group, and then, you know, posting those times where you could compare with others. So I think that kind of hybrid was good for
Yeah.
me.
Right. It
It's
seems like you kind of stumbled into a good combination,
yeah,
like something that can get us through.
yep,
We have to. One of the reasons we promoted Strava to the club is we're playing around with the idea of doing something like on an intramural level,
yep,
and so I think that we can actually tap into what you did and maybe encourage some more people to get involved, like maybe do a track pentathlon all through Strava or something
that'd be
like
fun. Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So yeah, so I mean that's obviously been just valuable for your own training, but clearly valuable to the whole club as well. So moving in a different direction. So you're aware that a fair number of people in the club are coaches at different levels, from
yeah.
everywhere from middle school up to college, and I actually think that as for me, I didn't really consider coaching until I got involved with Greater Philly and got back into running. And then as an athlete, I started to realize that coaching would actually maybe even a better use of my time. um, and so I know that you've been doing some work with a high school cross country team that sounds really interesting. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So in the past couple of summers, I've always found myself working with a couple high school cross country athletes for some, like people reach out to me and I do supplementary coaching with them. This summer, I felt like I got the same kind of requests and I knew there was demand for this. So I decided to actually create a group and a program. And so it was partially, I would say, inspired by COVID, because a lot of it was virtual. So instead of meeting athletes at the track, we did primarily like Zoom calls and online lessons, and then we did a few clinics in person, but those were small and a little more sporadic. And so I had 10 athletes. They were from different high schools. They were all pretty high level high school, like aspiring, like state medalist type caliber athletes, for the most part, who I wasn't training them. Like I wasn't their coach. I wasn't necessarily telling them what workouts to do, but I was giving them supplementary training. I called it movement and mindset. So I would say the areas where I like to focus on are more the supplementary aspects of training. So I help them with understanding movement and how important it is to move well. And by movement, it means everything from, just running with good form, but other things too. Like, can you squat properly? Can you do a deadlift? Like, otherwise don't do it. I'm trying to keep them from getting injured. I'm trying to give them a little bit of a performance advantage. And then mindset was really interesting because we dive into all aspects of running performance when it comes to mindset, and getting the kids together on calls talking about this stuff was really interesting. We're talking about managing emotions and trying to reframe things in different ways, and how to prepare for races, how to do visualization, like stepping them through mindfulness and visualization exercises. And I wasn't sure how they were going to receive that because they're high school kids, but it was really good. I was really surprised at how well not only did they receive the input, but then they would talk about it with each other and they would share their experiences. And the thing that I guess nailed it for me, which I think is why I want to keep doing it this way, is while they might have gotten some value from me coaching, and I also had other guest coaches come in too, which was awesome. I think they took more away from just being able to hear from their peers and how their peers are handling this, or going, what kind of challenges they go through, because obviously they're going through the same things.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
so
they talked about it.
you created a context for them to interact a little bit more than they probably would have been that time of year.
Yes, for
So
sure.
these were, and forgive me if you mentioned this, but these were kids from different schools, or were they all part of the same program?
No, they were different schools. I had between 10, I think I had maybe 7 or 8 schools represented.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So is that something I can have my kids call you on next year if you do it
I'm
again?
thinking I'm going to keep it going. Like this group, I'm going to keep going. They want to keep meeting once a month and just have a chance to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So we're just going to keep that going. And then, yeah, I have a lot of content created. I'm planning to open up another group at some point. So
Great.
Because I think it's all supplementary stuff. So I work with the coaches too. I always make sure the coaches know everything I'm talking about and they have a chance to give their input, because I don't want to ever
Yeah.
collide with what a high school coach is trying to tell their athletes. But I really keep it to the kind of stuff that most college, or sorry, probably high school and college coaches could never cover, because it's just, you never have that much time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You have a totally different, time frame to work with and a context. That's great, especially with how, the summer camps have become such a big part of high school cross country, and obviously they weren't happening this summer. So that alone, I think that, I'm sure some of the kids were just happy to have a way to connect with, and the big thing that I think most coaches have realized when you send kids to camp, um, that the whole next season you see them talking to friends from other schools, and a lot of times that doesn't happen until they go away. Like the teams tend to kind of stick to themselves until they break out of their shells and they meet kids from other schools, and so that's been great. So I would imagine that's something that you provided for them as well. At some point they'll bump into each other.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And I definitely think there's value in trying to, again, it comes down to community-based stuff for me. Like if you can get that built up and you give these kids that same kind of network to leverage from, I think they just are better and happier.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I tend to, maybe some of our members, we'll start to lose them if we get too technical here, but at the same time, as a coach and as an athlete, I tend to focus on the technical, maybe not quite to the degree you do, but tell us a little bit about the data analysis that you've been doing and how that's impacted your running.
Yep. I'll cover it from two angles. First is when I'm coaching others, I generally de-emphasize them using technology too much, because I think most people can get way too caught up in numbers and not the lose sight of the more important things. But
I get my wife to glaze over as fast as possible. I'd start to, she's a runner, she's an avid runner, but if I start to hit her with technical stuff,
so it definitely isn't something that I feel like everyone has to do. But I use because I'm a movement coach, I do use like video and sensors and things like that to help analyze people. It helps give objective data, to kind of understand and help people. So I do like it for that perspective. For myself, the reason I use data so much, in addition to just having that aptitude, is I'm a primarily self-coached athlete, and I find it really helpful to go into one of two roles. Either I'm the athlete and I'm just trying to execute on what plan I've created, or I'm the coach, and when I'm the coach, the data really helps me. So I don't really look at the data as much when I'm running. I really look at it afterwards, and I use it to help track a lot of different things. It helps me track my just progression. It helps me track lately some of the things I've been getting into are more movement based. So I actually wear these sensors on my body that help me track movement in ways that help me pinpoint whether things are improving or not, or where things might be going wrong, like whether it's asymmetries or just some things aren't as efficient as they could be. And I will skip that because I'm actually going to be doing a webinar in late September for a company called Leomo, which is the company that makes this system.
Okay.
And if anybody's interested, I would say I'll just share that webinar, because I'll be going into all the data.
Oh yeah, we'll make sure we'll share that club wide.
Otherwise, I will lose everybody if I go into that. But the data helps me. I think it helps me coach myself. It gives me, again, a way to take myself out of the emotional after and just look at how things are progressing, where my recovery's at, and make decisions that are more objective than it would be if I was just the athlete, in the mix of things. So that's kind of why technology is important for me.
Yeah, and that technology's existed for a while now, correct? When you say sensors, probably like accelerometers of some sort that are.
Yeah, these are. Yeah, so I wear a Stride pod for one, which is an accelerometer that I wear on my shoe. That's really more for measuring effort when I'm going on hilly courses and things like that. It helps me keep more consistent. And then this Leomo system is 5 sensors that are three-dimensional accelerometers that then all feed into a system where you can track movement performance indicators. So that's it's a newer system, but the technology has been around for a while. I think the difference is now you can get 5 sensors that are each this big that you don't even know you're wearing and don't cost, thousands and thousands of dollars. They've become a lot more affordable these days. Mm-hmm. So I think the difference is that this is starting to reach the more mainstream as opposed to the exercise physiology labs.
Yeah, I'll actually have to look back into it because actually, when I first became aware of that technology, I mean, it was probably at least 5 years ago, and
Yeah.
I immediately was thinking about, even with like, and in some ways, it might even be my thought was like teaching someone long jump
Hmm.
as a newer athlete,
Yep.
transitioning into that event, and that how you could, probably see some extreme differences based on, different approaches and different movements, and for an athlete to understand, oh, okay, that's why I'm supposed to drive my knee in this way, or the difference between, um, and it just, yeah, it was so cost prohibitive,
Right.
unless you maybe strung together some iPhones and stuck them in the docks or something, so yeah, actually, so I would look forward to your webinar because I think that could be really. It's not, it's really, when you get down to it, it's a pretty basic concept, but then the data that it gives you is so important.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, that'll be interesting to hear more about in the future. So before we wrap things up, I think the one big area we still need to hear from, and I think a lot of your club mates would really like to hear, what are your future goals? So
Yeah.
you've made some pretty big accomplishments. I do want to say, one of the things you told me is that you'd like to run into your 70s, and my big question is, why are you going to stop there? I've run with some 80-year-olds up at the Armory, but no, go ahead. So what are your
Yeah.
future goals?
I would love to run beyond 70. I feel like, having a 30-year horizon is good enough for me right now. It kind of forces me to think like long term and think like, I got injured last year and I had to take 3 months off. I'd rather not have to go through that very often. I'd rather be more durable. So, it helps me make decisions to prolong my running. And anything beyond like 75 would be awesome, but it's icing on the
Yeah,
cake. My dad ran into his 80s basically,
yeah,
so
that's
I've
amazing.
got that in my blood for sure.
Mhm.
But so I'll get to the running like time goals in a second. But I mean, the one that's kind of sandwiched in between the whole big picture run till I'm 70 and times is I want to continue to figure out how to play a bigger role in the running community. I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I've got about 1,000 ideas and I got a little bit of time, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work. But I've got a lot of ways. I'm just trying to continue to, how can I promote and what's my contribution into the community? Because whatever I seem to put into the running community seems to give me back, more. So that seems to be my best ROI at the moment. But so that aside, I do have some goals, and I'll break them into two things. I have like some times I'd love to hit before I can't hit them anymore, and then I just have some basic accomplishments. I'll start from kind of bottom up. This summer I had two goals. One was to break 2 minutes in the 800 meters, and one was to break 4:30 in the mile. I did not do either of those, although I think I was pretty close, but just didn't happen for me. I think I need another training cycle, so hopefully go back through the winter into the spring and maybe focus on that again. Those are just, you know, milestones that I think I can do that I'd love to like to do again. I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like I've gotten into the low 15s. I'd love to see if I can break 15 in the 5K. It's a big one, but and even if I get close, these aren't like
Right.
make or break. It's just like that's a good big goal for me to go to.
Yeah.
I've never been that strong in a 5K. I've usually been better at like 800 meters or like half marathon. So that middle range is actually hard for me.
Yeah.
But speaking of the longer range, I did, run 225. I think I can run 222. I'd love to have a couple more goes at the marathon and see
Mhm.
if I can chip away at that. I was originally thinking 219, but I think that's probably not going to happen. I think 222 or there, 109 half marathon. That's kind of I'd love to get down into that range. So I still think I can PR at those longer distances.
I've often thought that we should set more often. It would make more sense to set a goal of running 220 than
Yeah,
219. That notion of breaking a number is, I think,
right.
often what makes us completely crazy. But
It's true.
I don't know. There's still something. Yeah, this is how our minds work, I think.
It's how our minds work. Yeah. So I've got some time goals and we'll see how that goes. But I'd also love to like participate in the one of the Masters World Championships competitions, indoor outdoor. Like I was hoping to do Toronto this year. I'd love to go there and see if I can maybe medal. I don't know. I mean, the competition is really strong there, but it'd be fun to have a go at that. I still want to get back and do more of these Masters cross country, like the club like that we had at Lehigh last year. I want to see if I can place better in one of those competitions. And then the other one that's dangling out there. So I told you I did some ultra marathons. I worked my way up and I raced everything up to 100 miles, but I didn't complete the 100 miles. I got I hurt myself and I only made it 80 miles. So somewhere in there, I got to get to 100 miles in terms of an ultra marathon.
Yeah.
So just to
Are
complete
you
the range.
were you looking into the Batona, the 50 miler or the 100 miler out in Jersey? Do you know that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't looked at that one this year.
I mean, it's incredibly flat and even I think relatively sandy, which I don't love the idea of. But it is
Right.
one that's not too far away, and
It's not too far away.
but I don't know if it's been canceled yet. But yeah, so it's definitely it's one that I've considered as far as maybe starting with the 50 miler.
Yeah.
Speed is no longer that much of an issue. The one thing that I realized I should have included in my questions for you. So you, to what extent are you doing personal coaching?
I've tried to. So I was doing personal coaching. I've actually backed away from that.
Okay.
I found that it just because of my time, I couldn't take on many athletes, and it just
Yeah.
I get like really busy sometimes, and it's hard for me to work. I don't like want my busy times to conflict with somebody who's like really needing my coaching right now. So
Yeah.
I found my time to be better put. If I do any individual coaching, it's just with my friends and it's free. Like I put this training plan together and I work with them, but I don't have any expectations because they're not paying me.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
would say I do that. I do some volunteer coaching at like one of the local high schools. And what I really want to focus on is putting together these programs or communities that I can, contribute to, but then I want to bring in other people to also help
Right.
make it happen so that I'm not solely responsible for somebody's training.
Yeah. I hear you.
And I think that's where I might be more valuable in terms of bringing other things to the table and bringing other coaches in who can provide that as
Right.
opposed to maybe me.
I think that's a great idea, and obviously a huge need for it.
Yeah.
It's a different level of thinking. So yeah, I had heard that you did some personal coaching, and that's why I'm glad I remembered to follow up on it because I know, some people listening to this or watching this might be interested in hitting you up for some of that. I would
Well,
imagine
I
you
can
find
certainly
it
recommend
hard.
others in the club who are really good personal coaches too. So, I mean, I think we
Exactly.
have plenty of good coaches to choose from here. And
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah. I imagine it's hard to say no if somebody asks you.
it's hard to say no. Look, more likely what I'm going to say is yes, but I'll do it for free.
Right.
Just
Right.
like
Right.
help. But then it's not like a long-term thing. But I will help people. I do help a lot of people with their training, but I've gotten out of the whole, pay for a program
Right. Right.
job. Yeah. I just found that to be more stressful and not worth it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that we have gone long enough here. I've taken enough of your time on a busy
Mhm.
back to school week, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Brock, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk with me and to talk to the club. And I look forward to doing this with hopefully by doing this, some other members will be happy to follow in your steps and provide
Oh,
us
I'm
some
sure they
more.
will. I can't wait to hear from
Yeah.
others.
And I can't wait to hear about all these projects and how they continue to unfurl. So great work and great talking to you. And best of luck to you in the fall.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you putting this together. This is gonna be fun.
You're welcome. See you, Brock.
All right. See you.